Good morning, Sunrise. I want to share with you a short little table talk, just an introduction to the Lord's Supper as you celebrate it in your home and as we remember the death of Jesus in our home as well. I have been reminded during this lockdown of Paul's description of his ministry in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And I want to read to you verses 8 and 9. I want to see if you can maybe identify with us or see if this is a description of your life under lockdown. He says, "We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." And what he's saying to us is that life is hard. His ministry is hard. And perhaps you see or experience your life under lockdown as hard in a particular sense. But Paul goes on to say that we have the power to live this life abundantly. In verse 7, he says, "We have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the all-surpassing power is from God and not from us." He talks about this treasure that we have, and the treasure is that he's referring to is the gospel, or as he calls it in the previous verse, the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. In other words, it's the glory of Christ, it's the glory of the gospel, and we have that power in order to live, in order to overcome and experience all the blessings of God. In other words, we have salvation power, is what Paul is saying to us. And not only do we have do we have that salvation power for ourselves, but we can show it to others. We can show the way to others. He says in verse 10, "We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus." We carry around the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. In other words, we live life as ones who have died to self. We picked up our cross and we've died to self so that we live for Jesus, and He lives in us and His Spirit empowers us. So as we live this life that sometimes gets difficult, sometimes is hard, it's filled with trials and tribulations, as we live that life, we can overcome the difficulties. We can get through the difficulty because we have salvation power. We have the gospel. We have this power to overcome. And we have the power to overcome because we have died to self. And we can show that to others. Others can see our lives and see how we live a life of victory and live a life of overcoming. Paul in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 11 talks about the fact that when we partake of the Lord's Supper, we declare, we preach, we communicate the death of Jesus to others. We proclaim the Lord's death until He comes again, he says. And when we live a life of overcoming, in other words, when we live through difficult times, but we live with that power that God has given us, we show others what dying to self is all about and how it helps us live a life of power, live a life of victory. So this morning, as you partake of the Lord's Supper, as you partake of these simple emblems, think about how you live. Think about the difficulties that you face, but think about the power that you have to overcome those difficulties and how you can show others what Jesus means, what the Holy Spirit means, what God's power is doing in your life. That power that overcame death and raised Jesus from the grave is the same power that helps us overcome the most severe difficulties that we may face and helps us show others the way to a victorious life in Jesus Christ. God bless you as you partake of the Lord's Supper this morning.